Monica Makes It Happen podcast is proudly supported by Goya. If it's Goya, it has to be good. And by J.P. Morgan Chase, New York's hometown bank for over 225 years.
Hi, everybody, and you're watching the Monica Makes It Happen podcast, number 9. Thank you for always watching and supporting us. I always wanted to do a podcast because it's a longer conversation with some of the people I have access to. And one of those people, well, I have to say, is the real estate matchmaker. Now, she's with me, and this was the last minute. I was like, I got to get you in here. We got to be in the studio. And you probably noticed I'm in the TV studio. Very fancy. I don't know how I got in here, but I'm in the TV studio this time, so it's not going to be a usual thing. I'm usually in the streaming studio, or I don't. Usually we did a remote at Sylvia's once, the Apollo once. You know, we had some shows on Facebook, but I want to make sure we mix it up here on the podcast. But it's always the same thing. It's a conversation with someone really great, and Nikki Merkerson is someone really great. I remember meeting her in a bank. I was doing a story. See, this is the stuff that doesn't make it on television. And I met her, and she's changing lives. We know, and I know from my own story, Nikki, that, you know, my mom didn't come from anything, my dad didn't come from anything, but she did believe in real estate. And she believed that that would create generational wealth. And guess what? It is. It is the magic to generational wealth. So guess what Nikki's doing? Nikki, we met her because she is the real estate matchmaker. Let's say you don't have the money to buy something. She's matching people, sometimes perfect strangers, so that they're able to buy their own homes now, or buy real estate. So what I love about Nikki, you're not only just gorgeous, but it's your story. So we're going to talk about her story. Then we're going to talk about practical tips for you. Let's say if you're thinking about owning, if you don't have the money, you need more information, we're going to talk a little more in depth with Nikki. And then at the end, my speed round, I do 11 questions. It's like a speed round of just 11 things that I always ask every guest, which are kind of a surprise, but I think she's ready for it. So are you ready? Can we get started? Nikki, thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Monica. It's
very fancy, isn't it? It's very, don't expect this every time, okay? I'm not sure how I got in here. But anyway, let's talk about your story. Nikki, you tell me where you're from. Tell me what made you start in real estate in general. I mean, you were banking first, right?
Yeah, I'm originally from Jamaica, Queens, New York. And I started my banking career when I was 20. And that really led to a almost 25-year career in banking.
Wow.
But I always accredit banking for teaching me financial education, right?
Yeah.
And so it changed the trajectory of my life. And so I was able to purchase real estate when I was 27. I became a loan officer at 23. So at 27, I was able to buy my own home. And I had some housing insecurities growing up. I left home at 17, very young. But I also feel like, you know, it's a New Yorker story, right?
Yeah.
The grit, the struggle.
Yeah.
I moved around a lot. I stayed on a lot of relatives' couches. And so my goal was really to find stability. And housing is so important to creating stability in your life.
It's everything, and that's why I'm obsessed with it. But you moved 22 times, is that right? 22 times, that's your story.
That's my story.
And so I always say, like, my passion is helping people like my mom. Like, I think if I had therapy, I would just be helping women that look like my mom all day long, because I miss her so much. But I'm not doing therapy, folks. This is my therapy. It's action-based, and it's on television. And I'm helping mostly women. I love my men too, who need help. Call me, please call me. But for you, it's like, it's empowering women because they're holding up our communities. And a lot of times, no one helped my mom. So I can't take that back. I can't go back in time. But we can go forward. And we can change it today. And we can say, we deserve to be here. We deserve to help each other and lift each other up. And that's what you're doing. That's why I'm so intrigued by you. Quitting your job. Let's talk about this, okay? You had, I'm getting a high-paying banking job at one of our favorite banks. And then you decided, what? No more salary. I'm going for this full throttle called co-buying. You believed in co-buying so much. We're going to explain what co-buying is. Why? Why take that leap of faith? And were you scared?
Oh, I was petrified.
Was a little bit of you like peeing in your pants?
No, absolutely. But it's kind of like when I get something set in my mind, I just go for it. And it was actually my dream job. to really work in the community side of banking and going out to communities to help people. And that's how I actually came up with Pairgap, is helping people in communities that look like mine, where I grew up, who were interested in purchasing homes, but had a lot of barriers. And so at the same time, I was on a dating site, and I was like, wow, this is cool how the algorithm matches people who are compatible. And so I thought that that would be really good in home ownership, right? Because there's always people that talk about, I would buy a home with my family members or with my friends, but they're so afraid to do it. And so I wanted to create this space where people could collaborate based on their shared goals, and buy homes together and be able to build wealth if they're not able to do it on their own.
I think it's $1 billion idea. I see you in billions, so hopefully you'll remember me, okay? Just remember me. But coming back, we're going to have a commercial break, but coming up after the commercial break, I want to talk about what co-buying is, how you can do it. Is it safe? Oh, she's saying it's safe if you have a prenup, what's called a prenup. That's coming up after this commercial break. All right, we're back. So tell me a little bit about this co-buying. You can buy real estate with a perfect stranger.
Yeah, with the perfect stranger or with friends, family members. It's a business partnership. And let me just say, Monica, that over 30% of Americans are living doubled up, right? And so we're already living like this, especially.
No kidding. I have no space.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a space like New York. But there's no real platform where they can go to do these transactions safely, right? And so co-buying is really just partnering with someone that has something that you're missing, right? Whether it be income, assets, credit, all of the things that lenders look at when they're approving you for a mortgage. And if you're short in some way, that partnership can really fill that gap and, you know, make the dream of home ownership come true.
See, now you're interesting me. Now I'm thinking about this because, you know, a lot of times we're marrying later in life, so we don't have our partners, and we might not have the equity or the money to put up front, but you're saying you match someone, and then you might have the salary but not the money to put up front, so then that's how the compatibility happens. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And there's like a quiz online that you can take to do that. Okay. What can you tell me a little bit about one of your success stories? Like, you pair up so many people, and this is across the country. This is not just in our area, so that's why I love that this is going to be on YouTube. How does that work? Like, tell me a success story or tell me an example of how this works.
So I recently had these young ladies, and all had high-paying jobs, right? And they all, well, two of them own property already. And they got together and they really understood the value in partnership and being able to have more without having to go at it alone. And so they got together and they pooled their finances and they bought a building together. And they came to us to help them with the prenup.
I love this story.
Yeah. It's a good story.
I want to buy a building. So let's say you get some girls together, your girlfriends, and you say, look, we got this money, come to you, and then buy a building, and then you can rent it out and make some passive income, and then you quit your jobs.
Absolutely. But what
Hello. I love this story. I hope everyone's listening to this. This is great.
Yeah, what the prenup does, it really goes over all the roles and responsibilities. So you have those three people. Who's going to be responsible for the maintenance? If there's tenants, who's going to be responsible for collecting the rent?
But I love that. You do that at work. You have your roles.
Exactly.
So, and you draft that. You do the legal prenup. It's called the real estate prenup, and you've trademarked that, so she's serious, folks. No one can steal it who's watching. Trademarked it, and I love that. And it's actually in a document that has everything lined up, and you can see what your role is.
The percentage of ownership, all the things, all the what ifs that you think about when you think about these transactions.
Yeah, all the things that could go wrong. Because I know when I brought up the story, people were like, "Oh, that sounds like you need some sort of legal document to watch your back." But that's the real estate prenup. I love that. Okay, so coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to do my speed round, and I know a lot of you are already Googling. Where can they find you again?
Pairgap.com.
That's right. And she's coming to a neighborhood near you. We're going to talk a little bit more after this commercial. All right, now we're back with our real estate matchmaker. I love that. Did you trademark that too? I think you did. Trademarked everything. This is the speed round, everything. Hottest neighborhood to buy right now?
Well, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, and I think it's a really hot neighborhood to buy in. There's so much going on there. The city and private investors have invested over $1 billion in that neighborhood. You got the transportation, you got the casino, and people really should take advantage of that neighborhood now before they're priced out of it.
I love that. And then the best housing story of success. Can you share one? Best housing story?
That was the story I just shared with the women. But I mean, I can tell you another one with a single mom who purchased with her 2 adult children that were renting forever and paying a lot of rent, and they decided to pool their income together, and now they're building wealth together as a family. So
I love it. I hope that moms are watching and listening to that. Your biggest inspiration?
I think nowadays I'm inspired by people who actually do what they say they're going to do.
Ooh,
that's so hard to come by now, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, I do understand that.
So yeah. I'm inspired by people who can keep their word.
It's like action heroes. That's what I like. I like people who just do things. They don't ask questions. They just step in there and do it. The biggest achievement. What's the biggest achievement?
I think the biggest achievement is writing my book that's coming out.
The book, Paired. It's called Paired, and it's coming out. Is it coming out today?
It's coming out at the end of the week.
This is great. Well, we roll on Friday, so as soon as this, it's such. Isn't it divine?
It's a dating guide for real estate partnerships. So you can learn a lot in there about just how to vet the right partner, whether it be real estate or romantic.
I love it, and it's called Paired. So everybody how do they get it though? They go on?
Yes, they can go to pairgap.com and they can pre-order their copy on Friday.
And is there any other platforms, or is that the best platform to go on?
That is the best platform, but of course it'll be on Amazon as well.
Okay, I always ask this, but you don't have to answer, but you know, biggest failure that you consider your biggest regret, or I should say, instead of failure, regret. And I'm always surprised what the answers are for this one. Like when we had Sweet Tea on, Sweet Tea said it was not going to finishing school because her music career shot up, and she's like, now she went back though and she got her master's degree. Yeah, good. But isn't that great? What a great message that is for, let's say, young people who might be watching this or something, you know?
I would say the biggest regret is I don't think of failure, right? I think of it as a lesson. And so everything I've been through, even my housing insecurities, have led me to lead in housing and help other people. So I don't regret anything. I don't have any failures. It's just lessons.
I agree too, right? It's so true. And then when people say they don't have any regrets, I'm like, I have so many regrets. I could list them all right now, but we don't have time because we're ending the podcast now. Who should I have on my next podcast? I always end with this. Who should be next on the pod? What do you think?
Well, I think housing affordability is like at an all-time high, you know, in terms of people trying to figure it out. So if you can continue having housing experts and people, I like that you're all about solutions. And so if we can bring solutions to the table, that would be great.
That's why you're here. That's why I'm such a fan of yours, Nikki. Don't forget me when this goes billionaire kind of way. But you know what? That's what I love, is that you're empowering our families and the communities that I love the most. And I know from our own personal stories that you're on a mission to help, and that's what keeps driving you, and you're not going to stop. You're not going to take no, and I love that. I love that about you too. There's so much that I love about you. Nikki, you'll be back, and we'll continue to tell these stories. Also, you're on tour, right? Tell me about the tour really quick.
I'm in New York, just touring around and educating people about co-buying and giving them the opportunity to still get in the market before it's too late. You see what's going on in New York. Everything is developing. There's construction everywhere, and there's a reason for that. So it's important that we have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be part of the change of the new New York.
Ooh, that's good. Nikki, you're gonna be a regular on my show. And thank you for being, again, number 9 podcast. And number 10 is a surprise, but I think I'm gonna have to do housing. You're right, I gotta go back to my roots, which is housing. And don't forget to reach out to me with your stories, of course. I'm always, every day at 5:45, 6:45, I always joke that we do television too, but on TV, Pix 11, you can find me 5:45 and 6:45. And if you wanna reach out to me, Monica Morales TV on all of our social media platforms. Of course, right here on YouTube is where the podcast lives. Thanks for watching. We're making it happen together. Nikki's making it happen. You're making it happen.